Hey guys, welcome to this video. Today we're going to talk about how to prevent opening traps if you are playing against them. So if you are a beginner at chess and you are just starting out, you will undoubtedly fall for some opening traps at some points. This video is going to try and prevent you from falling from those. And yeah, we're just going to look at a few different lines, we're going to look at a few different openings, and hopefully you are going to be able to recognize the patterns and you will be able to prevent you from losing those games. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first part of this video is going to be about the most famous opening trap slash opening in chess. It's the scholar's mate, and if you haven't heard of it, it's a checkmate in 4 moves. So in chess, obviously, it is very difficult to checkmate early on the game if you are playing a decent game, because yeah, I mean, you need your pieces, you need your queen, your knights, your bishops, your rooks, you need every piece to deliver a checkmate. So there is one sequence in which you have to be very careful not to get checkmated. We're gonna look at this from the black side, and let's say our opponent plays e4 and we play e5. Sometimes what you will see is that your opponent is going to play queen h5 immediately. And this is like the beginning of like the scholar's mate, something like this. But yeah, so funny part is I already have a video about this specific opening, the scholar's mate. But in this particular video, I wanted to briefly mention it, and we also look at some other lines. But here, the threat is, of course, that he is attacking the f7 square, but at the same time attacking the e5 square. So it's very important here that you know what the threat is that your opponent is making. So obviously, like I already mentioned in a video before, chess is all about what is my opponent threatening to do and what can I do to prevent it and how can I make my own threats. Like it's combined, it's a combination of those things. And sometimes you have to play defensive and sometimes you want to play offensive. So in this particular line, what you want to do here, I mean, there are a few different ways you can play this, but the most common and the one I would recommend is to play knight c6. It's not the best according to the engine. There's also like d6, and apparently knight f6 is a move here. Funny because I can quickly toggle on the engine lines here. Let's see these ones, I guess. Yeah. So as you can see here, it says knight f6, which is 0.22, which is exactly what I wanted to talk to you about that you need to prevent. The reason you need to prevent this is because now the pawn on e5 is completely hanging. Apparently this is okay. If you go bishop e7, there's no attack on g7, and there's also no attack on c7, for example. So the queen isn't really doing all that much here. Still, I wanted to say, okay, let's prevent playing a move like f6. Knight f6, because it's not very good. What beginners often tend to do here is think, hey, there's a queen here, let me attack it with like g6, which is an immediate blunder. And the reason this is a blunder is because, like I mentioned, you need to always check what is my opponent threatening. He's threatening to take the pawn, but what happens after he takes the pawn? Let's say I go queen here, he just takes the rook in the corner. You lose a rook, you lose the game. So yeah, it's very important, like I mentioned, to always see what is the opponent threatening. He's threatening some stuff here. I would recommend play knight c6. Very simple. It defends the pawn. You develop your knight. Maybe next move you can go knight f6. Probably not. Maybe you can. The reason why I say probably not is because a lot of players here play bishop c4. And this is the beginning phase of the scholar's mate. So yeah, this is exactly like I mentioned. They want you to play knight f6 here. And the reason they want this is because, like I mentioned, there is more than one threat here. There's not only the e5 pawn, there's also the f7 pawn. So if you go knight f6, it is a simple checkmate in, 4 moves, because, yeah, this is game over. I mean, a very important thing to realize in chess is that the f7 and f2 pawns are often very weak, because they are only defended by the kings. Very important, that is one to remember. And yeah, that way, you just lose the game. So what do you do here? Now you play g6. Very important not to get the move order wrong in this particular opening, because yeah, like I mentioned, if you play g6 here, you lose the game immediately. So yeah, this is one of those things you have to know. I mean, every beginner in chess starts with knowing how this goes. So they start with, okay, the scholar's mate, this is what you want to prevent, this is how you need to prevent it. So, like I mentioned, I'm going to briefly touch upon it here. Like I mentioned, we play g6, otherwise it's mate in 1. And now often you will see knight f3, and here we can simply play knight f6. The knight is protected by the queen. The f7 pawn is no longer attacked. There is knight d4 coming. Sometimes they'll play something like c3, preventing knight d4. Now you can just play something like bishop g7. You can play anything really. I mean, yeah. And the most important thing of this is you are now in a better position. It's very simple. I mean, you have a better position here. The reason why is because the queen is a target. So a few moves later, let's say black plays something like this, and you play this, and black thinks, okay, I'm gonna castle. Now you can immediately go bishop g4. And yeah, there's a lot of pressure already. He has to go something like this probably, and apparently this is bishop c2 here, and then you can take the pawn, so you should probably go the other way. The point being, you are now in a better position as black, and the reason why is because early queen attacks often lead to a queen that is being pushed around. So you need to be very careful. If you bring your queen out too early, it can be very bad, because you are making yourself very vulnerable. And even though you played c3, preventing knight d4, it's still not very good. So, yeah. One more very funny thing I wanted to show you is, besides the scholar's mates, which is a checkmate in 4, there's actually a checkmate in 3 possible in chess. And it happens pretty much never, but it is possible. And it happens after f3, e5, and g4. Very funny. Once again, the f2 and f7 squares, they are very weak. The reason they are very weak is because nothing defends them. And here, it's actually just possible to go queen h4, and it's a checkmate. I mean, there's nothing you can do. You cannot block, you cannot defend, you cannot run. It's a checkmate. So this is a fool's mate, it's called. Yeah, just a quick mention. You don't even have to remember this. I mean, it's funny, but it happens like never. I've never seen it before in any of my games, and also not in any of the people I know that play chess as games, but it's funny to know regardless. Okay, so the very common next opening trap that I wanted to talk to you about is the fried liver attack. And yeah, if you've been playing chess for more than 2 weeks, you probably heard of it before. And it's a very common situation you will encounter in the now, well, let's say 800 to 1000 elo range. And it happens after e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, knight f6, and this obviously is the Italian. This is a very common opening in chess. Maybe I think this is the most common opening played under like 1000 elo. It just makes the most sense. I mean, you know, it's very logical chess. Of course, you bring out your knight, your bishop, you know. And now we go for knight g5, and this is the start of the fried liver attack. And yeah, the idea here is, of course, you attack the f7 pawn, and let's say black plays anything, you can take with the knight, for example, you fork these 2 pieces, and you're completely winning. So if you're playing with black, I would recommend, actually, if you're playing with black, there is only one good move here. You can already see it by the engine lines, of course. So there it says d5, bishop c5, knight x e4, queen e7, b5, etc, etc. d5 is the only move. The only move that keeps it relatively equal. And the only move for white here to keep it equal is to take with the pawn, which makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, you take back and you don't lose your bishop. If you go anywhere else, for example, I mean, black just, you know, can take here just with a pawn. Even if you take something like this, there's not really an attack. Even if you go here, there's ways to defend this pawn anymore. So, you know, this is not what you want. What you want is to take the pawn with your pawn, of course. And this is a very common position that has been reached in the fried liver a lot of times, of course. And now there's a very common move that looks very natural, which is completely losing, which is knight x d5. I mean, completely losing might be a little bit of an overestimation, but it is very difficult. Because the reason this is very difficult is not because you take back here, because he just takes with the queen, and now actually black is a lot better, because black has development and has pawn in the center, and white is very bad. It is not to take back, it is to take on f7 with your knight. A complete, well, sacrifice of a piece. It's not really a sacrifice, because you will see right now. The reason this is as good as it is obviously it is a fork. So if you don't take the knight, but you move your queen, for example, you lose the rook. We don't want to lose the rook for a knight because a rook is worth 3, or the rook is worth 5 and a knight is worth 3. So you take, and now there is queen f3 and queen f3 only. And the reason this is so good is because the queen attacks the d5 knight, but it also attacks here. And if you are trying to prevent, if you try to defend here, it is actually very simple. Just knight c3, and you reintroduce an attack on the d5 knight. It cannot be taken because it's pinned. And this position is better for white. I'm not going to go too much into detail about how this proceeds furthermore, but yeah, as you can see, I mean, it's just you're gonna win the piece back, and the king is in the center. It's a good position for white. So what if black, for example, plays, well, there is this move, which is terrible. The reason this is terrible, never go to g8 with your king. It looks normal. Like, for example, if you're playing with black here, I can imagine you think, okay, let's go to g8. It feels safe, you know. Almost as if I'm castled. However, this is just a completely losing move. The reason this is a losing move is because I can either take with the bishop or with the queen here on d5. And if he takes, for example, this queen, I take, he goes here and I take here. And this is a checkmate again. The reason this is a checkmate, the king cannot go anywhere. There's nothing to block. There's nothing to take the queen. This is game over. There's also, for example, you can go here, but once again, this is not very good. I can just take this with my bishop, and now I just won my piece back, and now I'm also threatening some f7 stuff. So if you go here, for example, it's another mate, because, well, this looks very similar to the scholar's mate we've just discussed earlier. So the funny part about most of these traps is that usually they all come down to the f2 and the f7 square. Very important, keep that in mind, the f2 and the f7 squares. Like I already mentioned in the previous section, these are the very, very weak pawns in the beginning of a chess game. The reason the king defends the pawn here. So yeah, very simple. Need to watch out for tricks here. We can take a quick look at a very interesting counter gambit of the fried liver, which is the Traxler attack. Also has been covered by big YouTubers very, very often in the past. But I wanted to quickly mention it here as well. It's funny because it's a very nice line and there's a lot of tricks. And also if you're a beginner, you can play it and try to win games like that. So very interesting for you if you want to gain elo. It happens after bishop c5. And it's not the best move. With accurate play, white is still a little bit better, but it is very tricky. The reason it's very tricky is because after, well, the computer actually says bishop f7 is the best move here. There's also a knight here, but that is not as good. So let's say he goes bishop here, and I guess you just go king f8, right? Or king e7. King e7 is apparently a little bit better, which is actually quite interesting. This is not entirely the line I wanted to show you. So let's go back to the line that I wanted to show you. It's knight xf7. And the Traxler happens after bishop xf2. So the Traxler is a counter gambit. Yeah, it's very interesting because if you take here, it's actually already not as good as it used to be. The reason why is because now I can take on e4 with my knight. Let's say you bring out your king even further to e3. Now there is queen h4, for example, and if you take the knight here, it's actually a major blunder. You're actually losing immediately because there's queen f4, I believe. Yeah, queen f4. And if you go here, 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 and here is a checkmate. So, yeah, once again, you don't have to memorize any of this. It's just, I wanted to show you that this opening is very, very tricky, and there's a lot of counter gambits as well. And the better you get at chess, the more you'll realize that even though sometimes things look like they are possible, like you can recapture something, like for example, if you look back at this position, for example, you would say, okay, very simple, I can just recapture, it's easy because, you know, the knight is protected by the queen and I win my pawn back. Sometimes you have to know certain things. So you can't always calculate certain things. You have to sometimes know what is good and what isn't. Knight xf7 is a move that you have to know. If you don't know it, it's very, very difficult to calculate, of course, and to see coming. Yeah, so once more, Traxler, it happens after bishop c5, knight xf7, for example, or bishop xf7, and then bishop xf2. And this is actually still okay for white, but you have to go like king f1, and you have to go here, and here, and here, and yeah, I don't know. Complex stuff, but you know, if you're a beginner, often you will get away with playing like this, because he takes with his king, then you go here, and now he has to find, for example, king g1, which is also a very difficult move to find. Sometimes they stop in front, and then you'll be able to deliver some nice lines here. For example, here you cannot take the knight, which looks like it's very much doable. One more thing, very quickly, is this one. This is the line how you're supposed to play this with black. So if you face this and you are not quite sure what to do after this, you don't take the knight with your f6 knight, of course, or you don't take the pawn with your f6 knight, but you play knight a5. That is the move, and that is the move that keeps the position equal. After bishop b5, you push, he takes, you take, and he has to go like anywhere with his bishop back. The pawn is protected by the knight, of course, and if he goes back, now you can kick this knight away, for example, and then you have to actually play chess, which is a whole different video. But yeah, like I mentioned, this is how you survive the fried liver, and yeah, you need to know this. You need to know that you can take on d5 with the knight, and yeah. In the last part of this video, I wanted to show you one more opening trick. It also comes down to the same principle that I've already mentioned, the f7 and f2 pawns. So almost all of these opening traps have to do with these two pawns, because they are often very weak. Beginners are not completely aware of the dangers that are possible on those squares, and they blunder. So that's basically it. We're gonna go ahead and see this game real quick. e4, e5, the most common two moves in a start of a chess game under 1000. Then knight f3, a6, bishop c4, d6, knight c3. And here black can play almost anything. There are a lot of different things that are okay. However, there's one big mistake here, which is bishop g4. And the reason this is a mistake is because, well, at first glance you would say there's nothing possible here, right? I mean, you know, the bishop pins the knight. If you move the knight, the queen is be taken. If you take here, for example, yeah, you can give a check, but the queen can just take here. So that is not very good. So what can you do here? I mean, there's at first glance not anything possible, but there's a very sneaky move here, which is knight xe5. And this highlights, the reason why I show you this specific opening trap is because it highlights that even when you think there's nothing possible, there is a very dangerous and very difficult to see move here that completely loses for black. And the reason it loses is because if you take the queen, that's the most common mistake, you will see bishop xf7. Obviously the knight covers d7 and f7, and the bishop covers these two squares, so he has only one square to go to. Now knight d5 is a complete checkmate, because there is once again the bishop is protected, every other square has been taken, and the knight comes in to deliver the final blow. So as you can see, knight xe5, very simple, you cannot take the queen. And if you take the knight, for example, we simply take your bishop. So, you know, that is a free bishop, at least not free. I mean, you won a pawn and you lost a knight, but, you know, it is a very good for white. The reason this is good is because you have a lot of development once again, and yeah. So, yeah, just like I mentioned, I wanted to highlight to you that even though moves look natural and look good, you always have to think about what is my opponent's idea. Is there anything tricky that my opponent can do to get a nice position? So, yeah, knight c5 is a very difficult to move c, but very difficult to see move, but it is very much losing for black. Or winning for white, actually. One final thing I wanted to show you. Once again, it has to do with the f7 and f2 squares. It happens in a line that I play quite often as well. It is the fantasy variation of the Caro Kann. So I like to play the Caro Kann with black, but I also face it quite a lot with white. And sometimes what my opponents do, sometimes what my opponents do is play the, or sometimes what I do is play the fantasy variation, which happens after f3. And after exchanging, there is d5, or e5 actually, I must say, which is the best move. And now we play knight f3, then exd4, then bishop c4. And this is a position that I reach quite often, not super often, but quite often. And there's a lot of things possible here. But there's one very big mistake which happens, well, even up until like 1600 quite a lot, which is bishop g4. And once again, it has to do with the f7 square. This time we can do a trick, and here we can sacrifice the bishop first. So instead of playing knight e5, we sacrifice the bishop first. And now after taking, I can go knight e5. And after, for example, queen or king e6, I believe you can take with the queen as well. I faced this, this is the best move with the queen. I faced this like some time ago, and then I thought this would have been bad because you can just take, but apparently this is okay. Bishop f4, and then here, and you're getting mated. So yeah, you could also take with your knight. I mean, you've won a piece right now, so or you're not. Actually, that is a mistake that I make more often. You did not win a piece, but you lured his king out, so it's still winning, but you're not up a piece. Yeah, so this is a very common trap that happens in my games. Sometimes still, I mean, even at 2100, although I gotta say not a whole lot anymore. Boo, very boring, but you know, yeah, that's chess. It's still, this is just +2. If the king just goes to e7, for example, it's +2. It's completely winning for white, a very good position. Okay guys, that has been it. And yeah, like I mentioned in the video before, very important, I think the most important thing of this video is to remember the f7 and f2 squares. Those are often very vulnerable for tricks in the beginning of a chess game. If you are successful at defending them properly, you will get through the opening all fine, and then the actual game begins. Next week we'll look at how there are all different sorts of checkmates, and we're going to look at every single one of them. We're going to look at checkmate patterns, how to find them, and we're going to look at the differences between them. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and yeah, see you in the next one. Bye.